Hi, it's your old buddy Zoo again, and today we are returning to the device from our most watched video ever, the R36T. Except this time, it's fake wood grain, and it looks amazing. I was waiting for a new review unit to ship, but this thing was actually on a Black Friday sale on Amazon for $50. Now you can always find these cheaper on AliExpress, but the benefit of Amazon is same-day delivery. Seriously, I ordered around 6 o'clock in the morning, and it was at my house before bedtime. That's worth an extra $10 or even $15 to me. Also, since it's Amazon, if you don't like it, then you can return it. Drop it off at Kohl's or the UPS store or whatever you have nearby. Let's do a quick summary of the stats on here. This is using probably the most common retro handheld chip, the RK3326. It is the most ubiquitous chip in retro handhelds for a specific reason, because it is tried and true and it's a workhorse. We have done dozens and dozens of videos on this chipset, so I'm not going to be going into a ton of detail or pushing the limits, but it will play up to and including almost the entire PlayStation 1 library, and you'll be able to dip into some N64, PSP, and Dreamcast. Now, if you missed my earlier videos on this, the D-pad on here is somehow not awful. It does fairly well in missing false diagonals, and it's actually very precise. It's not super great for intentional diagonals, like you'd want for a fighting game. I just got killed. But there is an analog stick on here, and it actually does a pretty good job while you're playing arcade games. The buttons continue to be loud as which isn't ideal, but this is a budget device. It is very ergonomic because it has these comfortable cheeks. The switch tile stick here isn't bad for what it is. It has RGB, but that can be toggled off in settings, and I almost always toggle it off in settings. And it does have Wi-Fi, which is increasingly rare in these budget models. So you can have retro achievements, maybe get Sync Thing up and running, all of those cool Wi-Fi things. Now, there is custom firmware available, and I ended up running an older build of an ArcOS that was built for the K36 line. Now, this specific ArcOS build I'm using also has some issues, like the top of the screen is cut off, and that comes down to the fact that these handhelds ship with a wide variety of screens, and there's very little consistency. Like with an Anbernic device, you might see a device with a quiet revision that shows up with a second screen variant. But these R36 devices are just the wild, wild west. So if you do decide to use a custom firmware, just be aware you're probably going to run into some issues. It's not the end of the world, though, because stock OS is actually not that bad. Let's talk a little bit about the wood colorway here. It is the main reason why I grabbed a second model of this device. I figure if you're going to lean into the CRT screen effect, you're going to pretend like this is an old 80s TV, then you gotta have wood grain. This comes in two wood grain color options, a darker mocha and this warm pine color, which I think is the best of the two options. I would have liked to have seen maybe some metallic highlights on this speaker grill or maybe around the border of the screen, but this is solid. And I know it would totally destroy the portability of this, but I kind of want to just put these rabbit ears on the back and just make it full retro. In addition to looking cool in retro, this pine color is almost identical to the very first device I reviewed on this channel, the Bookshelf Family Pocket TV. It was a crappy Famiclone that only had a handful of games, but it was $12 and it looked cool. Now this is only $50 if you want it right now from Amazon, slightly cheaper from AliExpress if you can wait, and it plays up to N64, which is just kind of a cool benchmark to see how far the hobby has come, especially on budget devices. Besides the wood grain, the other retro thing about this is the screen. It's not a CRT. That would be prohibitively expensive, but instead it is a plastic bubble that goes over the actual 3.5-inch LCD screen, for better or worse. It's a cool idea, but it's not 100% there out of the box. We're going to try to fix this as much as possible in RetroArch and on the device itself by messing with the lens a bit. In my first teardown, I got this whole thing taken apart and the screen was locked in there tight, and I wasn't sure you could get to the lens without getting out a heat gun and doing some risky maneuvers. However, after messing around, I discovered this little lens piece is literally held on with clips right here. So it's super easy to take off. So let's take it off. Da 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 da. Now there was a rubber gasket here, which I already removed, and it was covering a little bit of the corners, but you can see there's this, you can see the residue there, but there's also this black, just, it's like in the plastic itself. And if we could get rid of this, maybe scrape it off, you'd be able to get the whole screen instead of those harsh, sharp lines on the side. But I don't see a way to do that, which is kind of a bummer. You can kind of see how that sharp line just, if it was like a couple of millimeters this way, we'd be set. However, considering how easy this was to take off, I have an idea. Let's pop the black screen off my old one and do a swap. There you can see that rubber gasket. I really wish there was a way to get rid of that black on the inside of the screen. That's a bummer. But we are going to swap these real quick. That looks kind of cool. Ease it back into the clips. Steady. You just have to manhandle it. There we go. And that, I think, is kind of a cool offset now. Now this doesn't match, but that's kind of the point, because all my old TVs had a black or silver part right around the screen. So in my mind, this actually makes this look much more realistic. Next up, let's go check out shaders. Now stock OS has a small amount of shaders, and you can try out the CRT ones, and they work okay, and I showed them off in my last video. But if you do end up using ArcOS, then you have way more options. And if you adjust your screen scaling and set up overscan, you can get a really cool effect. Now for shaders, I went all the way down to the CRT folder, and I selected CRT Pi. This is lightweight enough to use with anything that the R36T can run. I then added another shader pass. So go down here, shader pass 2. And then shader number 1 here, I went into the VHS folder, shaders, and I selected VHS. Now this really gives it a warm and smeary look that I remember from CRTs. I don't know, is it picking that up? You can even see there's color offset. By default though, I think this VHS shader is a little too smeary, so I went to shader presets and I set my chroma smear to 0.25. Everything else should be the same. Set this to 0.25, apply the changes, and then if you want, you can save it as the global preset or just the preset for this specific core, so all your Super Nintendo games will look like this. You can even name it and save it for later, like I have here. I saved it as Zoo CRT. And you can really see as I'm playing here, it gives it that slightly warm, slightly out of sync, maybe slightly even magnetically charged feel you got from an older CRT. As far as setting the screen size, you're going to want to go to settings, and then video, and then scaling. And then I turned integer scaling on, my axis as Y. I set the scaling to smart, and the aspect ratio is 19:14. I have both biases at 0.5, and I have crop overscan turned on. This all combines to stretch the image to the maximum extent allowed by the physical parameters of the screen. You're going to lose some stuff on the edges with the overscan, but I think it's much more authentic from my perspective. And if you don't believe me, then just watch me play games for a minute or two. Whoa! Get wrecked, Chun-Li. Why are the dinosaurs shooting at me? I mean, they're dinosaurs. Just get off the helicopter. Whoa! Oh yeah. Easy.
Big Apple, 3 a.m.
Well, Gary, the clock on the wall says it's time for What Did We Learn? And we learned that the R36T is available in some new awesome wood grain color options, and ArcOS is up and running, which helps replace the somewhat limited original OS. We also learned that this is on sale on Amazon, and it'll ship to your house same day, which is pretty cool, or I guess pretty dangerous, depending on your level of impulse control. We also learned that through some subtle RetroArch tweaks, you can increase the CRT effect of the bubble lens. It can't fix a physically misaligned screen or anything like that, but by adding some subtle CRT effects and by forcing RetroArch to effectively overscan the games like a real CRT did, you can get a pretty solid facsimile of the real thing. If you think I'm a pretty solid facsimile of a real YouTuber, then remember to like and subscribe and all that jazz. I really love doing these variants of budget devices, but I never know how much other people like them. So let me know in the comments. And also let me know if this is a good Christmas gift idea. Sure, you can get it cheaper from other sites, but that same-day Prime shipping is pretty good, especially since this is technically $10 cheaper than the $60 this device originally launched at. Anyway, I gotta go review even more stuff because we're always super busy around this time of year. We're going to New York, we're getting new stuff dropped off. CES is after Christmas. I mean, Christmas? Who's gonna forget about Christmas? Bolsheviks, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.